Test, 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 test. Yeah.
Of the charter.
The Charter Review Commission is now in session. Opening the agenda, call the meeting to order. Yeah, I did that. Roll call, Ward 1.
Present.
Ward 2.
I think.
Ward 3. Ward 4. And at large present, the Charter Review Commission has a quorum. Next item is citizens to be heard. I have 2 cards, more than 2. Ms. Rutledge.
Thank you, Commission members, and thank you for posting an agenda packet. I want to make a comment about that. We have no idea really what is going to be discussed tonight because we don't know the order. The agenda just says discussion on items in the charter and possible action. I don't know how we can have any action on something that is not specifically on the agenda. So it's fairly vague. I know that legal counsel and the city manager wanted to kind of go through the charter, just random sections whenever they felt like they could get through them in a meeting instead of in order. I recommend that they go in order so you know as a commission and we know what we're talking about tonight generally, and just pick up where we left off the last meeting. I think that's more organized and it gives us a chance to review the sections in order instead of kind of being surprised. So here I am tonight again, and I have the staff recommended changes because that was placed in the agenda packet, printed it out, but I don't know what is going to be discussed tonight. So I obviously can't prepare for all of it in a few days' time, especially as we're doing this over the holidays. So I'd like for this commission to consider requiring that these be placed on an agenda and that y'all go through them in order. Section 1, 2, Article 1, 2, 3, 4. I saw some notes last week that possibly Article 12 might have been considered, but it wasn't because we talked about procedural things last week. I really appreciate all of that. So I just think that would organizationally for you and for us is going to make it a lot easier. Just as a general statement, because I don't know what we're going to talk about. I don't know what items are going to be brought up. I'll have to raise my hand and you'll have to call me because the next agenda item is to discuss possible things on the charter, which I have no idea what they are. So I'll have to I can't get up and talk about it before the agenda item like I am right now. I'll have to raise my hand. The chair will have to recognize me. And if that's just the way it's going to have to be tonight, but it'd be better if the agenda packet said we plan to address certain sections, certain articles, tonight and then go forward. Generally speaking, on the charter, anytime that you can protect citizens, please do it. We've seen unprecedented restrictions on commerce through the COVID crisis. I saw some things that might have been discussed last week. We had our beach. What you can do to protect us in the changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hull? Hutt? I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
I saw L's instead of T's.
That's right. My penmanship is bad. That's Rockport Elementary. Jeff Hutt, 2201 Prairie Road. I have a point of order. Can you actually vote and deliberate on things that are not on the agenda? If the item specifically is not on the agenda? Can you? Okay. Okay, I would like y'all to check and see if you can actually, if you have to have the changes on the agenda item before you can discuss and make a vote for it. Number one, my time. Okay, I wish Mr. Wagnon was here. I can't believe I'm saying that, but as a lawyer, he could tell you that the way it works is it doesn't follow with, you know, you don't have the city charter, the state statutes, then the Constitution. That's not the way it is. You guys have the ability to, the state charter can't take away more freedoms from us than the state statute allows. That's how it works within law. It does not mean that you can't give us more. Y'all could write for us an annexation, like a real strict annexation ordinance or clause to this that really gives the people of Rockport the ability and the surrounding people to not have to worry about being annexed again. Y'all have that. That's when we say you write freedoms into this. Give us as much freedoms as we can. And I'll tell you, the city has gotten better over the last 3-4 years with citizen participation. All of the good things that we have seen has arrived because of citizens, not because it's quiet. Got a new city manager. See how that works out. We found $4.5 million. We did a lot of things that have changed. We finally got drainage started working. Okay, that's my last. And the last thing I talk about is I've done a lot of campaigning. I've been campaigning since really '88 and Papa Bush. Moving the elections to November will not in any way cloud the field and change things. I asked Representative Hunter about this because they do it in Corpus and his son's on the city council. He highly recommended it moving it to November 2. He said it's much better for turnout. I've spoken with a lot of kind of politicians around the area. I have yet to hear somebody say it's a bad thing being in November. Especially in Rockport, you're not going to have a crowded field. So, and also the idea of going to either 2 years on November, every other November, that saves money, that helps us out a lot. When we talk about giving freedoms, it's the ability to have as much participation in the political process as you can. By moving the elections to November, by changing the terms where it's either every 2 years up in November or 4 years up every 2 years in November, will really change the dynamics and will bring a lot of people to the political process who we haven't before. And we've proven over the last time it'll make things better. So please make the changes. I appreciate what you guys are doing. Thanks so much.
I have a question to staff. It is my impression that we were going to go through the charter from front to back rather than jumping around.
No, so we did, we've already reviewed sections 1 and 2.
Yes.
And today we're picking up on section 3. And I grouped Article 3 and 5 together because they logically fit together. One being city council, the next one being elections, which electing the people as opposed to then jumping the staff in between them. So it was Article 3, Article 5 was prepared, and then if we had time, Article 12. Just because that was it's not as substantive as the other.
Let me suggest that we have that in the agenda for the evening so folks can follow, because I assumed it would go 1, 2, 3, 4, and
okay, we provided to each of you all the sections that we were going over today by email. I was at
They were sent by email and they're on the website.
oh,
We sent your personal and your company.
well, can we somehow identify? Can we somehow identify that for the public so that they can?
It's on our city website. The whole packet, everything here with all the sections and all of our suggested changes, we put everything out on the website for everybody to review prior to the meeting. Now, we did get this one out on Monday, which was a little late, but we just changed the process beforehand, but we'll try to have the next one out probably Friday, Monday at the latest. But we're posting the sections we're reviewing. We're posting all of our proposed changes or all of our suggestions. All of the examples from other cities are listed on here. Everything we're gonna talk about tonight was posted on Monday. And it was
Okay.
emailed to each of you as well.
So if that's not a good mechanism to communicate with you, please let us know a better way to do that.
Right, Teresa can deliver it to your house if that's easier for you to get them the information.
That doesn't help the public.
They have the same information.
They have the same information they need.
They have every section that we're reviewing tonight. So they have section 3, all the changes, section, what's the next one?
3, 5, and 4.
3, 5, and 12. They have all of the information that we're reviewing tonight. They got it on Monday on the website.
Christine?
Yes, I just want to say thank you. Now I understand what happened in the agenda packet, because it wasn't clear. I'm used to the city council meeting, so thank you.
Okay.
I think this is helpful.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify on that side too, to make sure we're okay.
Yeah.
We're okay? We're okay.
And we talked about the grouping of, we talked about this at council, meatier sections and less dense sections, and putting some together so we don't have really heavy sections that we're gonna take a long time, and then we can put some lighter ones that we may get to. So they're grouped logically and substantively, as opposed to 1 through 12. Because 1 and 12 are super easy. So,
Question for Ms. Roby. Is this correct? We have the national Constitution, we have the state rules, and we have the city of Rockport. I guess the county's in there somewhere. We can't go beyond what the state says, can we?
Yes, we can. The state rules only limit what our abilities are. So if you recall, the first meeting, that we have, we've got as a home rule city, we have the power to do anything that's only limited by state law, as opposed to a general law city who only gets their powers from state law.
And the last question before we get started is, I was under the impression that citizens to be heard was a separate section, and we just did that. And there's no provision as we go along for input, or is there, or?
no, there is. You guys voted that they could speak on each item
Okay.
3 minutes, up to 3 minutes for a total of 9 minutes. So, like, just as an example, our 2 participants so far have used 3 minutes. They've got 6 minutes left for the entire meeting. They can divide it up however they like.
So are
That's
they,
what you voted.
yes, and are they gonna provide another form, or are they just gonna raise their hands and we recognize?
They have forms provided.
So
there's
only these
more.
2 people can address, okay.
But there's no agenda items, it says just say discussion and possible action, section B, say which ones you want to speak on.
I'm not here. No, I didn't hear what he said.
If I may.
I'm sorry,
This should not be a debate.
sorry. You had, when we get further in, and if you have questions on particular items, that's fine, but as far as the way it's set up now, we're gonna press on.
Okay.
Okay. Discussion and possible action on Charter Review Commission meeting minutes of November 3rd, 2022. Has everybody had an opportunity to look at the minutes?
Any changes, any needing to change, any needs?
That's what I was about to ask.
Okay, sorry.
That's all right. Do you see anything that needs to be changed or
I
clarified?
didn't find anything.
Okay. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes as written?
A second motion. Or do I need to make the motion? And make a motion to accept the minutes from the last meeting?
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor of accepting the minutes as written, written, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say no. Okay, that's approved. Discussion and possible action on section-by-section review of the city charter. Mr. Rodriguez?
So, you've got the information regarding Article 3, beginning entitled, City Council, or the City Council, to be more specific, page. Oh, I'm sorry. So you've got, that's what is currently in the charter for section 3.01. You go to the following page. Regarding, I know that terms and length of terms was a, item of discussion, with the city council. And you've got two examples that were provided from other cities. And, if y'all wanna discuss that section or go on to a different section, that's fine.
Restate that, sir.
These are examples from other cities as to what they do. I don't know whether y'all are fine with section 301A as written, between 2-year terms, or whether you want to consider suggested, different length of term, which there's some examples there from the city of Irving, for instance, that has a 3-year term. League City, which has 4-year terms.
Did we not vote on three-year terms?
No, sir, we have not reviewed this section yet.
There were suggestions that were given to us to consider.
Mr. Hott?
Yes, sir. I suggest, I talked to council members, and I suggest that you go with not 3-year terms, but I do suggest you go with 4-year terms. I know that's a long time to be in office, but you can ask Mr. Brundred. He's coming on to his second term in the end of May, and he is just now learning. So 4-year terms would give them a little bit learning experience. It would also give them a way to counterbalance against, the city, the people who work in the city, they're here all the time. 2 years is kind of a quick pace. And I think go for 4 years, every 2 years, where you're electing in the, 2020, 2022, 24. And I would suggest that you would put the mayor race on the off-year election, so you're not electing a judge and a mayor on the same years. So that's mine. 4-year terms, every 2 years on the even years. Mayor on the same year as the president is.
Comments?
Last week, we discussed, or part of the discussion was, it's hard to get the volunteers to do longer terms, where 2 years is kind of better for the public. Like, they feel more inclined to volunteer themselves for the public service for a 2-year time period, and
The commitment to 4
and
years.
the commitment to 4 years could be a little overarching for.
Mr. Chairman? I believe I think we should stay with 2 years, because if the council person is not popular enough to get reelected after 2 years, he doesn't belong there. We can go 5 years, 10 years, but 2 years at a time. That gives the citizens more control, and I think that's what we're trying to do.
That was one of the statements that was made last week about, well, yeah, I've been here 2 years, I finally get it, and I may not be here again. Well, it's gonna be up to her or him, for the public, to push her through or him through for that 2 more years. So I don't totally agree with this 4-year stuff myself.
The incumbent has a big advantage. She should be reelected if they've done a good job.
Correct.
But I do like the idea with the judge and the mayor being in different races than the same race.
Okay.
You know how they do section awards 2 and.
But we'll
4
talk
wards?
about,
Further down.
we'll talk
In
about
5,
elections later.
In 5, yeah.
That's in 5.
Right.
So, okay, we'll go to that. But as far as terms, I kind of like it the way that it is. And the 10-year consecutive option where they can step down for a year or 2, and then they could come back if they want. It doesn't restrict that. It says just 10 years consecutive.
I personally don't want it to be that way. I mean, if you're in there for 8 years, then you get reelected, stay out a year, and then go back, get reelected, you got another 10 years? I don't think that's necessary.
I agree with that.
I think again, that goes back on the public, whether they're gonna vote him in or not.
Exactly.
So it's still the public's choice.
Well,
Really?
I totally agree with that. The public should decide at each election whether or not that person should continue. So even if they place themselves up for
Correct.
another term, citizens are in control and can decide whether or not they continue on. And with that said, I'm in favor of 2-year terms and alternate. Now, as far as judge and mayor being on different election cycles, that's fine. It's 2 different groups.
But we'll get down to that later in.
Okay.
Any other things you wanna tell us, cause we're kinda close to it?
No, just if there's no motion to make a change, then we'll can move on.
Okay. I'm okay with no changes.
Yes,
Do we need to make a
No
motion
change.
for no change?
No.
No, okay.
just to take action.
And then for 10 consecutive years, is that enough? Or did you want to limit that back to 8?
We'll get to that. That's a separate section further down. The 8-year term. Or the 10 years rather, excuse me, the term limit you're talking about, right?
3.01D? Okay. Yeah, okay, we're on A.
Yeah, that was A that we just did.
I think we're gonna talk about 10 years consecutive or not consecutive, just total.
Right, so subsection B, which is the next item, discusses the ward system. Obviously, y'all currently have 4 wards, and an at-large, which is the mayor's position. These are just examples of a couple of other cities that do a ward system or do at-large. And
If I understand correctly, if I had been a council person for 10 years, I could then run for mayor at large, is that correct?
So we're not on that topic
Okay.
right now.
we'll get
We're
to that.
talking about the ward system.
Okay.
So let's run through that, and then
Yes,
this
ma'am.
is one thing we are gonna do in order, sorry.
But I think this is why you bundled the way you did, right? To get from this process to follow it through to the next.
To the
correct?
action, yes.
So on 301B, if you have a change or no change, just, it's your pleasure there.
I make a motion that we no change this item.
301B.
Yes.
No changes.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second that motion. No change.
We have a second? All
Yeah,
those in-
we don't need a motion.
Yeah, we don't
There's-
need
Oh, I'm sorry.
We'll just keep going. We can move now to C, which talks about the years. 1 and 3 in odd years in the mayor, and 2 and 4 in the even years.
So this actually does relate to, some of the items that you have discussed about, moving to a November date. And I don't know whether y'all want to do that or not. I will let you know that moving to a November date is not allowed under the election code. The election code only allowed the change to occur prior to 2016. From if you were going to be moving from May to November, and it's not currently allowed for a city like ours to make that change to November.
So all the recommendations that we've heard, we can't even,
The 41.0052 of the election code prohibits it.
so does that ever change? Not on our side, but the code you just told me.
There have been some bills introduced to extend that to others, to other years, to extend that deadline. But as of yet, that's the law that we're dealing with right now.
So I guess we just ignore everything we just heard about for changing that.
You know, you could put that up to the voters, but I can tell you, again, state law supersedes our charter.
You
so
said we
can't
could,
do
you
it.
said you could, you said we could, didn't have to do that. We could write whatever we wanted.
And you're limited in this case by what the election code says. The election code says that you can't change it to November.
What code was that? Election code?
Texas Election Code 41.0052.
So is that limiting us from skipping the May 23 to do in November, or is that
I'm
limiting?
sorry, can you repeat that?
Is that restricting us from saying we're not gonna do an election May 23 per the charter? We have to do on May 23. Could we put it on the?
What
Have it in May until state law changes.
We have to have our general election for the election of our council, unless it's a special election, but our general elections occur in May. Okay, now whether that occurs in even number years, odd number years, or every year, that can change. But it will be in May.
But this charter, if not ready, will not go to the May election. It would go to the next one.
Which we would call a special election for November.
Okay.
Okay, good. You got that? Yeah.
That's where I think she was going with that.
I'm sorry?
We got it. Thank you.
So in our city charter, we could put a note in there saying that if state law changes between charter reviews, that we would prefer to do a November election.
Well, I mean, you could put we could put in there that it's in a May election date or any other date allowed by council, and then council would have to vote to make that change when allowed.
Which we don't know when that's going to ever happen.
We don't know.
Right.
I mean, yes, that's correct. We don't know.
That's part of the reason we're here changing these verbiages though, y'all, because state law could change and we don't necessarily do a charter review when state law changes. So we need to keep in mind when state law is changing, what do we want? You know, so we can do things more restrictive than state law, but we can't do it more laxed.
You
than
can't
what
be
state law.
contrary to state law.
Right, we can't contradict it, but we can make it more strict or work within the.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but my concern is we could end up with a charter that's, each thing has an asterisk and says, if permitted by state law, if permitted by state law. Do we want to put anticipatory things into the charter?
So keep in mind, going forward, this has to be reviewed by our charter every 5 years. So the most it will go without review going forward is 5 years,
So let me add something.
hopefully.
When 41.052 was adopted, okay, at that time, it did allow for a certain period of time from its adoption to the end of 2016 for a city council to have changed from May to November, regardless of what the charter said. So the state law gave that ability to the city at that time when that was adopted. Now, obviously, Rockport and most cities did not exercise that option, but that was something that was written into the law at that time.
Okay.
And it didn't even, and the unique thing about it is that it didn't even require an ordinance. It said by resolution, you could do that.
So in reality, after this is completed by city council, whoever, 5 years comes down the road because we're looking at it again, that's when they have to revisit it because there's not a thing you can do about it between now and then. Correct?
Yes, I mean, like Commissioner Amaya indicated, we could write in there that unless a different date is allowed per state law, it will be, the election will be in May. You could write that just in anticipation of something happening. But currently, this council and this commission has no ability to make the change to November.
So with that, if the state law changes next year, then we would technically have to wait another 4 years to revisit the charter.
No, the city council can have a charter review at any time.
At any time.
The charter requires a review every 5 years, but it doesn't limit the council from having a review only every 5 years.
So knowing that this recommendation would be put in here as said B, if the law changes, this is what we would prefer to see. It would be up to the council or whoever to visit that at that time, because it's in there as a suggestion or.
Right, and council, I mean, it's ultimately gonna be council's decision regardless of whether to make a change or not.
How do you want to word that?
And I just give you that preview because we're gonna discuss that later.
Yeah.
But it was relevant here with respect to
Sure.
when the council terms are going to be.
So if they change to November, never mind,
They can't.
I know.
So do y'all have any changes to subsection C?
Did you want to add anything?
I don't think so. I think if the state law changes, we'd just be,
Put a note in there on that, but.
As citizens, we also can put things on the ballot. So I'm sure if there's a desire for that date, citizens can also have that avenue. We're for you. So yes, thank you all for considering.
so no change.
No change.
So the next one is the 10 consecutive year term limit. I provided 3 examples here of the city of Frisco, for instance, allows 3 consecutive terms for each office. So that's, a total of, I don't remember how long their terms were. Highland Park had, again, 3 terms. San Antonio has 4 full terms. The interesting thing about San Antonio is that's a lifetime term limit. So so once you serve your terms, you can't run for council again. And
Can you serve council and then mayor?
you can serve council and then mayor, but then once you're term limited out on both, it's a lifetime limit. So those are three examples. One thing I've got the question there is the prevent resignation or removal from interrupting term limits. So if you see currently it's 10 years on council, which is read whether you're mayor or council person, it's 10 years. So you could serve 8 years as council, 2 years as mayor, or 8 years as mayor, 2 years as council person. Interesting thing is do y'all want to make a change for resignation or removal for office? So for instance, you're a council person X, and you served 9.5 years, and you want to continue serving. So you resign prior to the election, and now you've got your gap in time at 9.5 years to run again. Or do you want, what I believe the intent to hear is 10 years is 10 years, whether it's served or through resignation. But currently, if someone wanted to resign at 9.5, there would be a gap, there would be a sufficient gap, I would think, in my opinion, for them to run again. That's
So I leave it to y'all to discuss, but that's the purpose of the question at the end.
So if they resign, they've got 6 months out there that is considered not served, and it gives the opening for the next,
Yes, ma'am.
correct? Y'all
10 more
hearing that
years.
right?
So we want to put lifetime, we want to put lifetime, 10 years max?
I think we're too small for lifetime, but I think there's some verbiage in here to get rid of the, where they can resign. Where's that? If you scroll down a little bit, it said they can't resign or something like that for, get rid of that loophole basically, right?
I think whether they
There it
resign
is.
or not,
Prevent
at the night,
resignation or removal from interrupting term limits.
yeah, I mean, if they choose to resign at the 9.5, then I'm sorry, you gave up your last 6 months, period. That's how I feel about it. Yes, Jeff?
Just coming from a person who actually, who has had a lot of elections in the city here and have not been successful in those elections. I'm not for term limits. I say if you have an effective council person who's willing to stay for 10, 15 years, that let them keep on running for office. It's up to the citizens to vote them out if the citizens feel like they're not doing a good job. What it does, and you see this the reason I'm against term limits is because these guys represent us, and these guys are our direct representative. These guys are like a company. The city is a company. I don't want the city employees, the city staff to be here for 20 years, and then you have council people who are here for less terms. I want that sort of length of knowledge and experience for my council person. And if we're having a great mayor or a great council person, and the people of their ward want them elected, and if the people of the city want to keep electing that person a mayor, I say that person should be allowed to be mayor. And if a group of people don't want that person in there, then it's up to those group of people to unelect them and to run candidates against them. And I think I think that would be the better way for the city, the charter to work.
We're trying to put it back in the citizens' hands, and that does it.
Having no limits, no term
No
limits?
term limits? Well, that's true, and it's exactly what Mr. Hutt said is, if they don't want somebody anymore, they'll vote for someone else.
You would think if it was a bad person, he would not win the election.
Well,
A bad representative, right?
That's if you believe in the system.
I believe in the system.
I'm just saying, that's if you believe in the system.
Has anybody been ousted by the 10-year term limit recently? Yeah.
Council, I'm down.
So what if it's, some verbiage is put in there for any one position? So they could be they could be Ward 1, then they could be mayor, and then they serve 10 years as mayor, and then they could be voted back to Ward 1, but not mayor. They've reached the term for that position. And then they could be, if they're doing well, you get that continuity with going back to city council, but somebody new would be able to move in. And then after one election cycle, if that mayor isn't cutting it, the Ward 1 person who was mayor could rerun for mayor after the next cycle.
what I'm hearing is that, really, we should have no term limits. Let the citizens decide. If somebody has served 10 years and they want them to continue to serve their ward or their city, they should be allowed to. My understanding of the purpose of term limits is to, everybody gets stuck in their ways and turn things around and have somebody new come in. And if they don't do as well as the old one, then he gets voted out. And,
The new person comes in.
yeah.
Is there many cities that have no term limits?
I would say probably most cities do not have term limits.
Makes it easy.
And I would say that because most cities are general law cities. Most cities and general law cities don't have term limits to them.
Well, I think this kind of goes back to, again, where you have somebody that's done their 2 years, they have to rerun. I don't care if it's 2 years, 10 years, 15 years. If they're gonna win, they're gonna win. If they're not, they're not. That's how I feel about it.
I kind of like the idea of a term limit just for the sake of argument, right? So if people feel that, and I use the word feel because if they start to get wound up in politics and they feel like that person has been there too long and they call for term limits, you know, that option's there, but really the vote is gonna choose the, I don't know. It's just, it's a kind of a facade, but
Mixed
it's,
feelings about it because you get the good old boy system going and it can just go forever. And if you're an incumbent, you've got an advantage already. You could just keep going and going when maybe we need new blood in. So I can see both sides, but.
May I give an example real quick? I think a good example can be this
Can you
past.
come to the microphone if you're gonna speak, please?
A good example. A good example can be this past year. Judge Burt Mills was at 16 years and he was running for another election. He lost. So the citizens term limited out. Tommy Moore was running for another, I don't know, 18 years, or he was running for his fourth term or third term, and he didn't get voted out. So citizens didn't. So you let citizens, I mean, I'm in a lot of these races against like, you know, city establishment folks. And I mean, I think I would really like the opportunity to like, I mean, I think it's good for us. Let us vote out elected leaders we don't like. Don't pull that authority away from the citizens. I mean, it's just like, we need to own our city. And we can't own our city if like, we're not gonna get up and vote people out if we don't like them. If we sit back and the bad leader stays there for years, that's our fault. Shame on us. Yes, ma'am.
That's how I feel about it. I don't see term limits. That's my opinion, so.
Any other comments?
I think we're all against term limits. Is that correct?
I am.
I would rather see no term limits.
I'm sorry.
I would rather see no term limits.
So just if I understand the way the conversation is going, it would be to delete subsection D.
Correct.
Yes.
so if they make that motion and let's say, is it, like my conversation is a little bit for the term limit. There's 3 for it. So then, but I would still stand for,
Yes.
right? Like I wouldn't
don't have to
mess.
vote in favor.
Okay.
It's on the record.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we need a motion?
So we do need a
So you
motion
want to
on
make a
this one
motion
to make the change.
to remove
Okay.
section.
Tom?
There's a motion on the floor to eliminate term limits.
Who made the motion?
Nobody did that.
I'll move to make the motion for no term limits. Anyone second it?
Just to delete subsection D.
To delete subsection D. So I can get married.
We have a motion,
To delete subsection D, and you second it.
and he seconded.
Okay.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
And I'll say nay.
Did you?
I'll say nay.
Yeah.
She said nay. She said nay, Tom.
Well, I didn't get to
So
the
it's on the
nays yet.
record that she said nay.
Okay.
Did you get that? I love you. Let's go.
On a vote of 3 to 1, we've eliminated the term limits from section whatever.
In the end, it's gonna be up to the council and the public, correct? When it comes all the way down, so.
This is the voted suggestion.
Correct.
To go towards city council right now is to eliminate.
All right.
Okay.
So that takes us to 3.02. One subsection in that.
says they can't be delinquent in taxes and criminal.
Does not say that currently.
Where did I read that?
Sorry?
Where did I read that?
That was one of my proposed changes.
That was in another email, correct?
That's in subsection 5, or article 5, rather.
So we're on 3.02, qualifications of members.
So this one's asking us to have the person live in their ward that's running for that ward.
All right, that's,
I don't see changes for that. I think if they're gonna represent that ward, then they should live in that ward.
I agree.
Agreed.
Is there any way to make reside more strict though? Like, because there have been some applications where the person owns a business and submits, right?
Reside,
So,
says reside.
Have to prove residence.
They have to have a home
Okay.
or apartment or no POS, PO box, nothing like that, no business with.
so reside is like a very strict, like that, there's no way around that, right?
Live there,
Yeah.
yes.
Does anyone want to?
I mean, so residency is actually a very specialized area of the law.
Yeah.
Because there are some instances in which people don't live in where their residence is, okay? And that may be and the law allows for that. Like for instance, if your home gets, wrecked by a hurricane,
Mhm.
and then you moved temporarily into a home, across town, but your intent is to come back and live in that, reside there.
So
The
special
law doesn't allow
circumstances.
for that. I mean,
Special
so
circumstances.
residency is not a bright line test. There's a lot of case law and a lot of common law with respect to what residency means. But generally speaking, where you sleep is where you reside. It's a lot more complex than that, but that's just the rule of thumb.
Likely the voters would not like him if he didn't live in the ward and wouldn't elect him up.
I would.
Well, it's okay if that's what it falls under as far as resident. There's special circumstances evidently. But in the realm of it all, basically, we're asking you to live in your ward, period.
Yes, that's correct.
That's all it is. So, do you all agree with that?
And if somebody's going to play games with the system, then voters are going to say, we don't know you. I'm not voting for you. Yes, ma'am.
I just want y'all to consider, because we have a lot of short-term rentals. So is a short-term rental considered a residence for a property owner? So I just want to make sure that that's all confirmed, that the intent really is someone who actually resides here, lives here, full-time.
Is there anything else in anybody else's charter that deals with that?
No, that's generally it. If you don't reside in your district. Again, not every city has wards. Okay, not every city has single member districts, but those that do, they generally require that you reside in the area.
Well, you have
Now, the one thing that this says is that you shall reside in the ward they represent while in office. Doesn't talk about your application to run for that district, that ward, prior to running for office.
So you may not live there at the time that you're applying to run, but you will if you're accepted.
So if you'll recall, I mean, just a famous case of Senator Clinton when she ran for New York. She didn't have a residency until she ran. She announced and she didn't have a home there. But what this is saying is that to be a member of the board or of the council, you have to reside in it while in office. It doesn't talk about
personal situation in New Braunfels that a person wanted to run for county commissioner and he had to move into the district to run. So I think that's what we're talking about here.
Well, I still think this is pretty black and white the way it is.
I recommend no change.
I'm good with that.
No changes.
Donna,
What?
do you anticipate, or do you suggest any changes, or no change?
No changes. I guess you can't hear me. I'll look at you when I speak. How's that?
I'm having a problem.
I know,
tonight.
honey, it's okay.
So, although we took into account the thing about residents, it's the committee's suggestion that there be no changes to this.
I didn't hear the last part, I'm sorry.
Well, that makes up for it, because I can't hear you half the time. But that's my fault.
Okay, no changes.
There are no changes.
No changes.
So the next one is 3.03 compensation.
Yes, sir. There actually is a there actually is a residency requirement, and it's on 552. Okay, but there is a resident requirement where you have to be here for 12 months before you can run for office in the city. But not in the ward. Okay. All right, so that you can run, you can live someplace else, and then when you get elected, you can move to the ward. Is that correct?
You
Not the
reside
board
in the
elect
city
you,
1
then
year
yes.
prior, you
Okay,
are allowed
yes.
to run
Yes, sir.
in that ward and then
Yes, that's
reside.
right, in the ward 12 months as well.
You have to be in the ward 12 months.
Okay,
Okay.
yep, got it. I know.
Yeah.
We've read it.
3.03 discusses compensation of council.
Basically, this is saying if they buy something out of pocket that pertains to their job, they're getting reimbursed by so.
That's the second sentence.
Okay,
The first sentence is that compensation determined by city council.
I think that's pretty typical.
it's pretty black and white.
Yeah.
No
Does anybody,
changes to.
anybody object to that? Okay. No proposed changes?
The second sentence with the members of the city council shall also be entitled to reimbursement for actual expenses incurred in the performance of official duties with the approval of the city council. Has there been any experience with waste or abuse in expenses like travel expenses or anything like that?
We haven't had any here that I'm aware of. In fact, very few people ask for them.
But if I go out and buy a car so I can get back and forth to City Hall, you think the city council is going to agree to that?
Well, I've already tried to get mine.
They're gonna shut it down.
Yeah.
You're not making a car payment.
We've got the control thing here. It says, with approval of the city council. So I think that covers us.
Okay.
Anyone have any changes, any other suggestions?
We already said no changes.
Okay, now I'm deaf.
It's okay.
Okay, we're good with that. Let's move on.
3.04, there was a comment from Councilperson Jackson regarding currently the mayor votes on all matters and whether that should, and her comment is whether that should be only in the event of a tie.
I think it should be only in the event of a tie.
I've seen this before too, and I kind of have to agree because I don't want him to sway it. That's why you have your council. But if it had to come down to it for a tie, then you have to make a decision. So that would be the mayor's choice. But I don't think you should have full reign every time. Do you have anything to say about that, or are we missing something?
I have nothing to add on that. I mean, you
So basically, most people here said something.
Yes,
So
sir.
I make them, did you have something to add, sir?
Two mayors that I've been with, they have voted last. They let council vote, and then they're there to vote their pleasure as number 5. So they don't particularly sway the vote, if you will, because they're the last vote. They are the tiebreaker, and what Councilperson Jackson stated is, in the absence of the mayor, if the mayor pro tem is there, that now we only have 4 votes. So would he or she be able to retain her ability to vote in that time? And then we could have a tie. You know, it could be a 2-2 vote.
If she's pro tem at the time, I think she should have the right to vote.
Yeah.
Christie,
I'm sorry.
is somebody tallying up how many 3 minutes we've gone through? Okay.
I'll be real quick, real quick.
I-
All city council members, including the mayor, should vote on everything. We want what they're voting on record. Thank you.
Any difference, because if it's a tie, he's gonna vote the way that he would have voted anyhow.
I don't know. Trying to think of a way that's not true, and I can't come up with it. 3 and 1. No.
I think he shouldn't vote unless there's a tie.
That's what we were saying.
Yeah.
Well, then it'd be the same as he voted for it without a tie.
I mean, if they're deadlocked, that's basically what it is, so he has to help decide which way that's
It
gonna
wouldn't be
go.
deadlocked if he voted the way he wanted to during the regular.
That would have been
Right.
2.
Right, yeah. Right.
Yeah. Do you have your hands up again?
I try to be really quick. The reason that I think that it's really important for all city council members, including the mayor, to vote is because that gives everyone to know on the record what their position is. That helps us with elections. It helps us know how we judge our elected officials. So they need to vote on all items, all of them.
Doesn't make any difference. So it doesn't matter.
Anybody has strong feelings?
I mean, that's a good point. You get people that feel like the mayor might be swaying some votes by their position, and so you get and then there's also the position of knowing where they stand on
Well, the mayor doesn't, at least in our system, the mayor doesn't vote until the end. The council members by ward give their position, and then the mayor states his.
Which is 4 wards, he makes 5.
And he makes 5. But I'm not even talking about breaking ties or that. As far as the mayor being on the record, I don't have a problem with the way it's working now, which is mayor votes.
Doesn't make any difference, because however he votes, it's gonna be noted that he was for this or against this. So it's a non-point. Let's go on.
I say no change.
No change.
No change.
For the vacancies, if you scroll down to the end of that, there is a relevant section that,
everybody good on any member of the council that is absent for 3 consecutive meetings? The seat is declared vacant? Anybody have a problem with that?
Says without explanation, so I don't have a problem with it.
I think that should stand. I mean, if they're gonna say why they can't be there, it's just like I can't be here November 30th, and I have a good reason not to be here, then that's great. But if I choose not to show up for 3 out of the way, forget it. Yeah, see you later.
Without an explanation? Yeah, I'm good with that. Anybody opposed to that? We'll leave that stand. We leave that stand.
The whole section?
Yes.
The powers of the council.
Objections?
It's a very broad grant of powers. Nothing.
Any objections to that?
Says it posed by law, so that.
As long as they stick by the law, they're good. If not, they're on their own. No changes.
No
over here.
change.
Is this a section where, like in the time of COVID, that the mayor can,
No, there's provisions in the law about the special grant of emergency powers, to the mayor.
But I think the city council should be able to override the mayor proclamation if more people think that this thing should be over.
this is a
Where
section
where
to
can
do
we
that.
address that, address
Yeah,
it?
that's why it's only allowed for 7 days. And then, with the grant by the city council, then it can be extended up to 30.
How long was it? This last, Brad, do you know how long?
3.06.
Where does it say about the 7 days?
It
I
doesn't.
don't remember what statute number it is off the top of my
It's
head.
state law, so that,
It's state law.
3.06
law,
is
that's fine.
limiting it to state laws. So this is where we can restrict it even more for the city. Like we could say,
Yes.
state law says, 30 days, but city of Rockport, per the charter, only wants 7. Yeah, I think this is the spot we can really make a difference to make sure that there's no abuse of power, there's no, during the time of pandemic, I think we need to look into some verbiage to limit the powers of the mayor or the judge, well, the mayor, in this case, from doing something without city council approval.
Well, the law grants him that authority already automatically for 7 days.
Mhm.
And then it's ratified by council to go up to 30 days.
The judge is a whole different thing.
County judge?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the county.
Yeah, that would be different.
What
good with
happens
this?
if they're opposite of each other? I mean, you
Then,
close,
I mean, it'll depend on the statute you're talking about, but generally speaking, if authority is granted to both, the mayor's authority would override.
Mr. Webb, to answer your question, I don't recall how many consecutive 30-day extensions were granted, but at some point, and Ms. Rutledge probably does know how many it was, but at some point in time, it was revoked by council. I'm sorry, it was not extended by council by vote.
The initial 7 days was granted by the mayor.
That's correct.
And then it came back to council, I'm assuming anyway, I don't know. It came back to council every 30 days.
Correct.
For renewal.
And the council decided whether to go forward or not.
Beyond,
So
that's
you
what
understand
it
that.
should be.
beyond 7 days.
Yeah, okay.
But that initial emergency 7 days powers, that's in state law, you know, in an emergency situation, I think that's appropriate, but should he be able to extend it for years, that's when the powers come back to the council.
Okay.
I believe that's correct,
No
right,
changes.
Mr. Arias?
That's what we're talking about is no change.
No changes.
That's what I'm hearing. No change.
No change.
Next one is prohibitions in the city council. And made note of Councilperson Jackson's comment there about the waiting period in subsection 1 to be 3 years as opposed to 1. And then a proposed change to subsection 3. So if we want to go subsection by subsection, that might be the thing to do.
So they're only asking for one change on section 3, that shall or may. Is that the only change they're asking? That particular wording?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because I was like reading it twice going, what's different besides that? Okay.
Yes, and on changes, you'll normally see, the way I do it is a strikeout.
Okay.
To deleted language, underline to added language.
And then they're asking for the 1 year, they'd like to see 3 on number 1. How do y'all feel about that?
I mean, it's up to city council at that point, and I don't think we need to change it from 1 to 3. Kind of like the term limits that we were talking about, so.
Unless approved by a majority vote of city council. I
Right.
don't think it should change. How do you feel, Tom?
I don't see any problem with that.
I'm good with no change.
I agree with 1.
Okay.
And then we agree with
So
3,
number 1, there's no change.
correct?
Correct.
How about number 2?
No, based on my previous experience, I agree with number 2.
No changes from me.
No change.
Okay. With respect to number 3, there is one recommended change to make the mandatory into the permissive.
I like the whole May thing.
No, that's optional. May makes it optional.
Yes, ma'am. Makes it permissive.
Yes, ma'am.
So then shall means
Which
they
require.
will,
Okay.
and then may gives flexibility.
Yes or
Shall is
no?
a must.
I, having been through the last city council where employees were a new department head, a new city manager, we need this to come back to council. It needs to be shall. I recommend no changes.
Well, how about the word must?
Shall is fine. Shall or may are both acceptable words.
Yeah, that's,
I
I would like to see the council have as much power, as much authority as they can. The word shall, they're modals. Shall means must, which means that the city manager right now must consult with the city council about these positions. May gives the city manager the option. I think we need to keep it as shall, so that we can have that sort of control by city council.
Does anyone?
I prefer shall. May do it, may not.
Yeah, I agree now.
I never hired a department head without running him or her before the city council anyhow.
So number 3 is no changes.
Yep,
on
no
agreement.
change on number 3.
Number 4 is analogous to number 3 regarding the termination of a department head.
No change by me.
No change.
And the proposed change, I guess, didn't make it onto this one. The proposed change on number 4 was to also change shall to may.
We'll leave it to shall. Need action.
Oh, wait,
Yeah, I didn't, it didn't make it on there for whatever reason.
So the recommendation that you've received is to the city council may hold at least one regular meeting.
No, ma'am.
He's on
in
something else.
3.07, number 4,
He's
I
ahead of you.
skipped again, I'm sorry.
go from the city manager may consult with the
Oh.
city council
Yeah, no
for the
change.
removal of a department head.
I'm opposed to that.
No change?
Oh, I'm sorry,
I like shall.
Leave it at shall.
shall, not may.
Okay,
And, yeah,
now 3.08 is meetings of the city council.
Stop that.
Sorry. Okay.
I don't see changes in number 1. Do you?
I'm reading the proposed change, I don't see the necessity.
Clarity on notice and add provision regarding emergency meeting.
So a special council meeting will require to have a 72-hour posting regardless. So under the Open Meetings Act, so the suggestion there is to change from 12 hours to 72 hours. Unless there's a.
I saw that.
I concur.
And in number 2, that VATS, the Vernon's annotated, was changed to just clean up the chapter 551, which is the Open Meetings Act.
Fine with 2.
Good, three's good.
And then a proposed change to include number 3 that that a meeting can be called in emergency circumstances.
No changes.
Good.
Good.
Oh, those are suggestions, so we gotta vote on those. So we have to vote on those ones.
Right.
I'm accepting the changes, so how do we, what do you want to do?
So you making a motion?
Yep, motion to accept the changes as
72
proposed.
hours to each member.
You can just say accept the changes as proposed.
Accept the changes as proposed? Yes, no?
What's your question?
I didn't have
Did you, I'm sorry, did you have something?
I was just looking at the 72 hours and like
That's state law.
Yeah. Well, I understand that. If it was to ever change, like, then what does Rockport prefer? If it was to ever,
90 hours.
Yep.
The next charter, 5 years from now, right?
72 hours unless it's an emergency, and then they can do it with the,
In less time.
yes.
I'd like to propose to accept the changes. As said.
Okay. I agree. You agree with the
Second.
changes?
Second it?
Second, I'm sorry. I'm going to sleep here. I have a motion and a second to accept this. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Let's press on.
Is a quorum section. There's one recommended change to include a sentence to that allows for whenever there is less than 3 voting members, then all of them may have a quorum for the purpose of.
So less than 3 would bring you down to 2.
Yes, ma'am.
That's in the case of a vacancy, though.
How would that happen?
Okay.
It was a big party.
Interesting.
Half the council
Seen
went.
that happen?
3 of them?
Yeah. 3 of them resigned in protest.
So you were down to 2, down to the mayor and possibly,
Natural disaster.
Yeah.
And he's just saying the 2 remaining can still vote as a quorum.
I make a motion to accept the proposed change for the quorum.
I'll second it. Donna,
aye.
Aye.
unanimous? We agree.
And when the comprehensive plan was debated. Several of those items were included on the same agenda packet. Recently, the rules of procedure for the city council meetings have limited public comment to 3 minutes for all agenda items, 30 minutes for all citizens. I have attended meetings where 30 citizens have attended. And according to the new interpretation of the ordinance, if 30 citizens showed up, say there was a big zoning change, they would each be given 1 minute. If I wanted to go and speak on 3 or 4 items, as is normal during the budget cycle, which is June, July, August, September, usually August, September, and there's rate increases, I would be limited to 3 minutes for all items at the beginning of the meeting because the rules have been reinterpreted by city staff or somebody, I'm not sure yet who, okay? This is an opportunity in 3.10 for you to give citizens their right to address city council meetings. Something specific, 3 minutes for each agenda item would be appreciated. Speak on each agenda item prior to each agenda item. I know that there was discussion of not being specific, but this is a pretty important topic because our rights have recently been reduced. My First Amendment right to address city council has been reduced. And it doesn't just affect me, it affects everyone in the city because now everyone in the city is limited in their speech because the ordinance has been reinterpreted. So this ordinance change, please protect citizens, give us 3 minutes, and make sure that we have the right to speak on each agenda item. Thank you.
Section 551.007, C, B, it says a governmental body shall allow each member of the public who desires to address the body regarding an item on an agenda for an open meeting of that body, address the body regarding the item at the meeting before or during the body's consideration of the meeting. Please allow us the right to speak during the agenda item. Write it in, give us the ability to speak before it. Things get lost if you just have everything at the front of the meeting and then questions don't get answered. It really allows us. Proof is in the pudding. We made good strides. I think Mr. Brundrett could agree with that. We made good strides with citizen participation. Sorry. I referenced, not my time. This is not my time. 551.007. It says the public testimony, and this is in the it's in the Open Meetings Act.
Okay.
Thank y'all.
Well, so I'm seeing in this that the city council is determining the own rules of order, and they shall provide that citizens of the city shall have a reasonable opportunity to be heard at any meeting with regard to any matter under consideration. So this is falling back on our city council to determine the amount of time. And so if the people of the wards aren't liking what they're not being able to speak, they need to talk to their councilman.
But we could recommend here a different way of doing it, the way that they're doing it now.
We passed rules for this committee at 3 minutes and 9 minutes total. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that's not the way it is at city council.
Correct.
No, those.
We could propose that it be made that way to city council.
Well, the thing is, city council determines.
All right, I understand.
So they set their own rules. We don't set their rules.
So right now, they're all just getting a minute to speak prior to.
I've been on the other side, and I wanted to say something when there was discussion going on, like he said, that there's a question comes up in the discussion that you could not really address before you knew what was going to be said or done.
Just for the record, you're getting close to the 9 minutes.
If you could, could you put that back up for me, and don't, because I want to read from it. I'm sorry. Can you put that back up on the screen? If you could say, like, citizens of the city shall have an opportunity to be heard at any meeting during citizens be heard or before an agenda item is deliberated on. I think that's the only thing that you would need to change, just a little wording like that. And the time limit, let the council decide the time limit. And.
What you requested wouldn't allow you to speak when it went into deliberation. Is that what you just said?
No, sir. No, not deliberations. To speak, but when the agenda items come up for deliberation, then you could speak on the agenda item, not after the deliberation, or not for, just when it comes up, and allow that for the city council to decide. If they want you to speak before the deliberation and it happens, just give us the opportunity to speak on the agenda item, or when the agenda item comes up.
At any meeting during the citizens to be heard and before voting on an agenda item with regard to any matter.
Yes, something like that.
You would want it before deliberation.
before deliberation?
So right now, every commission or council sets their rules. If they comply with the Open Meetings Act, then they're allowed to set the rules as they see fit, just like you set your own, Lindsay sets theirs, council.
So again, we're just making a recommendation, and then they're just gonna decide what they're gonna do with it. So I would like to take that recommendation and just let them to be heard before discussion, or where the agenda item shows. And did I say that correctly? Probably not.
You can say, you can do either way. You can do before deliberation, you can do when the agenda item comes up, do any iteration of that.
That way, their discussion is heard, and then before they deliberate, the people could have an opportunity to talk. Especially if there's like technical experts out there or something like that that want to give their input.
I would agree with that.
I'm
Yeah.
okay with it. Again, it's a
Okay, so
recommendation.
I make a motion to edit section 310 rules of procedure, the second line starting at city shall have a reasonable opportunity to be heard at any meeting during citizens to be heard and before deliberation on agenda items with regard to any matter under consideration.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
So just for reference, you've been at it an hour and a half.
Mhm.
I don't know how long or how far you wanna go, but. Okay.
311 is passage of ordinances in general,
I will teach people to run for council.
and Councilperson Jackson had a comment regarding the necessity for 2 readings for a zoning change. Zoning obviously goes through P and Z. There's already public comment at that point. There's already multiple times in which the public can comment. Her question was.
Is it not now three readings?
We require 2 readings of it.
She's asking to cut it back to 1 at the city council.
No.
There's 2 at P and Z. 1. I'm asking Carrie. Sorry. How many readings of P and Z? Resolution. For the, for P and Z, at P and Z, there is no reading of the ordinance.
Just an agenda item.
Is there any way to favor voters over like a corporation coming in? Like if a corporation was coming in to change zoning and there's no way to like.
This isn't.
So so that was her comment, was 2 readings on a zoning change by ordinance. Currently, if you read section, and that deals with subsection 3. A proposed ordinance, except emergency budget or tax, shall be read at 2 city council meetings with at least 1 week between readings. And her comment is, do you need 2 for a zoning change? Additional comment, do they need to be 1 week apart? Examples from other cities are provided where city of Salina, for example, doesn't require multiple readings. It allows for 1 reading. Beaumont, that it shall be read more than 1 time or considered at more than 1 session of council. ULIS also requires 2 readings.
Well, the purpose of the 2 readings is to make it public twice to see what the public's coming back for, or what is the purpose of 2 readings?
I think the purpose is exactly that, is to give the public additional normally 2 readings is all that's required, but the 1 week is a little unusual. The specificity of the 1 week between readings is a little unusual. By contrast, the general law city isn't requiring readings. They can adopt at a single council meeting.
I think it would give the citizens time to talk to other people that were unaware that they were being zoned, and give them time to come back and talk and show the city council their feelings.
I'm not opposed to the 2 readings. I'm curious about the week thing. I don't understand when the 2 readings have to happen now as they sit.
Okay.
Is it in a 2-week period? Is it the one? I don't understand why the 1 week is being put out there. They want it out sooner?
Good
Yes,
evening.
ma'am.
May I? Carrie Dietrich, Community Planner for the City of Rockport. The rezones require a public hearing. And to give notice to the public that there's going to be a rezone, and it might be their neighbor, but we only send notices to people within 200 feet. That's required. But someone that lives just outside that 200 feet may not find out about it until the neighbor says, hey, I was at the meeting last night, where were you?
Correct.
And that gives them the opportunity to come to that second reading. So I really hope you don't change that.
Yeah, I'm not against it. I just don't
Okay.
understand the 1 week thing.
Right,
That's-
so it's not uncommon, I mean, if, for instance, there is a special meeting of a city council
Okay.
that meets on Monday, and then you've got another meeting on Friday, for instance, that's still 2 readings, you know, this is, what I'm saying is that the 1 week is what's unusual from this, as opposed to the 2 readings.
I would make a proposal that we change it to 2 weeks. That would be,
I vote no changes.
2 regular meetings. That way that it's not making an extra meeting for anyone.
I second that.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
So I'm sorry, can you restate your motion?
I'm not ready to make a motion.
His motion was,
Would you read it as talking to one of them stupid things?
I'm there, I don't, like, I'm ahead again, but I know where. Okay, his motion was for 311.3, that it shall be read at 2 regular city council meetings, period.
That are 2 weeks apart, or the regular ones, do they have regular ones?
Okay.
Right now, we have a regular meeting on the 2nd and 4th Tuesday. So it would have to be read at 2 regular meetings. That means we can't have a regular meeting on Tuesday, call a special meeting on Wednesday, and read it again.
Perfect.
Has to be at those 2 regular meetings, no special call meeting.
Now that I'm for.
Any other questions on the issue? All those in favor?
Aye.
Donna?
Aye.
It's unanimous?
Okay, did y'all have any changes to 1 and 2?
I don't see any change. I don't. What? Tommy, you good with that? I don't see changes. Do you see changes?
I don't see anything.
No changes.
And how about on number 2?
I think we did both on that, sorry. No changes.
On both of them?
Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm sorry. Number 4?
Is that pretty much what we just did?
Yeah.
Be on regular meetings?
Well, this is where they changed something in between to make sure that there's 2 meetings on new material.
This is saying that if they make a change before the second meeting, then that second meeting is the first meeting.
So any amendments or changes, it has to be reread, start over.
Can I interject something here?
Yeah.
This, I'm not sure what Ms. Jackson was going for here, but, we're, really focusing on customer service. And so at this point, if I have a citizen that wants to change the zoning of his house, he has to go to P&Z, and then he has to go to 2 council meetings, and how long do we determine that that takes?
Well, we took out the public hearing requirement.
Right.
Separate, now cut back to that.
So it takes 6 weeks to rezone your property. And now this, if you change this, which is fine, I don't care, I'm just telling you, but then it's gonna add 2 more weeks, or if you're in November or December, it's gonna add another full 4 weeks because we only meet once a month. So the thinking behind, I think, Ms. Jackson's proposal was, in the interest of customer service, we're not lengthening the time that it takes someone to rezone their property how they would do it as they see fit. It's not the city rezoning somebody's property, it's someone applying to rezone their own property.
Well, understanding it on that side, see, I'm thinking, when I voted on this, I was thinking it was the city making changes out there to the public, then they were not getting the chance to respond.
No, ma'am.
If it's coming from the public coming in and wanting a zoning change
Right.
That's mostly your
within their own,
changes.
so that's where the misunderstanding is, so I'm glad you clarified that.
Yeah, so this was in the event to shorten the process for the customer.
Well, I'm all for that. Jeez.
Because
But
it's a huge process for the city to go rezone something.
Yeah.
this is way out. But say your neighbor decides to build a pig farm and you don't have time to work it out. I think that,
Like, cause you're the neighbor and you
Yeah.
wanna fight it?
yeah.
So you get mailed a personal notice at the P&Z, and then at the council meeting, you get mailed a notice, so you have 2 delivered to your house,
At a 200-foot radius.
if you're within 200 feet, right? Both hearings, which is right, you get notice of both hearings. But the other part is, well, they have to comply with a zoning category that the city has. You know, if you wanna do a pig farm, you're gonna get denied anyway, because the city does not allow pig farms or whatever, but.
It's an example.
He just
I
talked
know.
about undesirable.
I know, I'm just saying an undesirable.
And sometimes big smells go more than 200 feet.
And
So,
that's
you know,
true. That's
whatever
very
you-
true.
Whatever you,
So,
whatever.
That's the only thought process that I know of there, so.
And there was just a city council meeting where somebody had to come back and get their approvals and stuff, and it had something to do with fire.
And he was wrapped up for several months. Uncle. So, and his house burned down, and he was just trying to build it up.
So for that, could we have some verbiage for emergent special circumstances due to?
And how would you put that under one umbrella? You can't.
Yeah.
It's too much of a stretch. Everybody has an emergency, like all of a sudden,
Well, you
right?
have to-
You know,
Miss Dietrich is like, yeah.
right. I mean,
No matter
this,
what, they need it
it's
done.
like, how are we gonna
Yeah.
word this so that it doesn't fall into everybody, you know?
So for that, you may wanna think about if go into one reading, but require a supermajority vote of the council in order for that
Go through
reduce
and-
it from 2 councils.
I like that. I mean, long as it's, to be heard by the citizens knowing about it, then here is the outcome. So your reading is done, then you have the vote, the person's satisfied or not, and it's over. Move along, correct?
Like a unanimous vote?
Well, if you say supermajority, that would require 4 to vote instead of 3.
Right.
So you can
Yes,
only
ma'am.
have 1 dissenter.
That's not bad.
Thank you for recognizing me. I think one important issue here, this is another opportunity for you to put in some more protection for the surrounding property owners that may be surrounding a potential rezone. I just want to bring one up, Henderson and Trailer Boulevard. Many people came out to discuss that. They lived around that property, and only 2 people got a notice, or 1 person, because that was a very big piece of property that was being rezoned. So 200 feet is the ordinance where that now it says that people within 200 feet get a notice. Hardly anyone gets notices on major rezones of their neighbors. So you don't know it's happening. That's the reason for 2 readings. That protects us. So that's number 1. But number 2, there's a great opportunity for you to increase that buffer zone of people that would get notified. Make it 1,000 feet or 500 feet so that neighbors actually know. If there's a grocery store coming in next door at the corner of my street, I want to know about it, but I may not because I'm not within 200 feet of that location. So 200 feet is a very small, it's very minimal. And I've been to rezone meetings, and just very few people get notified of rezonings next door or adjacent to them because it's too small. So please add 500 feet or 1,000. Chance to help.
Homeowner, so that would go 200 feet.
If it's a square, you have kind of an oval because you have to do the every area.
2 seconds.
Jeff?
2 readings are in case you can't be here for one. It gives you more opportunity, like the home or the people next to it gives you more opportunity. And I agree with the thing. 200 feet doesn't even go across my property. So somebody on the side wouldn't even know.
That's what I said, fixed mills can go farther than 200 feet. Or
Edge to
whatever.
edge?
From every edge of the property.
The other sides wouldn't know. Okay, yes. If somebody got, like the property next to me, if they want to rezone, the people across on the other side of me wouldn't know because it's more than 200 feet.
200 feet. State law.
That's a minimum.
That's state law?
So state laws say minimum of 200 feet.
Okay, Carrie Dietrich again. So the 200-foot comes into play at every property line around that piece of property. Every property owner within 200 feet of that property line,
Their
north,
border.
south, east, west, gets a notice. And I got to remind you, those notices cost to send out. I think when we just sent one out that had 72. And it gets expensive. Now, if you want to increase that, that's your choice. But that would have to be done in a different part of the code. It's not here. So if that's the desire, well, then somebody needs to tell us, and we'll look into that. But
Okay, so I have a question for you again. You are for the 2 readings?
absolutely,
You're for the 200 feet also?
I'm fine with the 200 feet. That's a standard.
And I don't,
And we also publish the public hearing in the paper.
And there's one at council and one at community.
Yes,
So
2
there's-
different public hearings.
If you take out one here, there's still 2 public hearings.
Yeah.
We're taking out the 3rd.
So if we went to the 1 plus the majority vote, there's still 2 more steps, or is that the
No,
final
there's one
step?
step before they get to council, there's 1 public hearing,
Mhm.
and then you have a public hearing at council. As it stands now, you have a 3rd public hearing at council.
No, there's only 2 public hearings. So that goes to a public hearing with P&Z,
Right.
and then P&Z has an action item, same
Yeah,
meeting.
2nd reading, I'm sorry.
Yes,
3
second
readings.
reading. And then they make a recommendation to council. Council holds their public hearing, and same agenda has their first reading of the ordinance. And then on the second council meeting, they have the second reading of the ordinance. So they give
So it's
citizens an
3
opportunity
meetings.
3 times, actually.
I've been through this, and the 3 meetings is sufficient, but the 200 feet is not.
So that 200
You
feet
can-
would need to be
I-
changed in our code of
I-
ordinances.
Right.
I don't want to waste the city's money, but this is for the citizens. That shouldn't be a point.
I understand. And if you want to expand it, then that's something that we need to look into. But it wouldn't be as part of the charter. It's in a different section.
Right, we can't change that here.
Right. Okay.
That would be something else that
talk
we'd
about
take
it.
up somewhere
And
else.
we're gonna address that at a different point here.
It's not in the charter.
It's not in the charter.
Ordinance.
It's in your development, so.
And we change that how?
Per ordinance.
Not today.
Not today.
Not today.
Contact your councilman.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we, so, do we want to go back to what we did vote on previously and add, unless there is a super majority, in case it's like a citizen with a fire and stuff like that? Or do we want to do the two?
No, I'd be in favor of that. I'm not sure how I'd word that. I'd leave that to the staff, or Mr. Gonzalez. But yeah, in case of an emergency like that, and we can't list them all, but certainly a house fire.
I believe they gave the right thing. The supermajority, the council would make the right decision in that particular
And the
situation.
council is for the people too, so we have to put faith in that also.
Yeah, that would help adding that line would help customer service, but then it would also help, if
Whatever
it
the
is something that the
situation.
citizens could be concerned about, the council would use the second reading. So, okay, so I make a motion for section 311.3 that we just voted on, but to add, shall be read at 2 regular city council meetings unless there is a super majority vote at the first meeting.
Of 4 members, 4
So-
votes.
4 votes.
Everybody hear that?
We'll bring that language back to you next.
Okay, so that's a suggestion, and then we'll look at it, and
Yeah.
we're tabling it for next week?
I'll bring
Or
it
not
back.
the word table?
I'll bring it back.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Or, I'm
And
sorry,
we're totally open
we're
if
taking
there,
next week off.
to
so-
suggestions on that.
My apologies.
Okay. Okay, so we're.
Well, that's gonna be moved to the, next agenda. So where are we now?
I think we're on number 5.
We're
Four's
on
good.
5?
Yeah.
4? 5. I'll listen to you now.
313, we just looked at 4 and 5.
My notes are that we're on 311, subsection 4. 4, 5.
I see no problem with that.
No changes.
I'm good with
So
5.
start off with 4.
Yeah, we both up there.
Anyone have any changes?
I don't see any changes from 4, 5, and 6, but you all have to decide that.
I heard that you had no motion, so there's no changes.
All right, so then that takes us to 312, emergency ordinances.
I read this one and it's pretty black and white.
Yeah.
I don't see a change.
I see no changes.
No
Anyone
change?
else? No change.
Authentication, recording, application. You'll see, Councilperson Jackson had a comment regarding that.
This is trying to take it out of the newspaper, is that what this is?
And then, and a proposed change.
index books and no.
Yeah, they just wanna remove that, because now we're digital, or whatever they wanna call it.
So that's the addition of that last sentence, to use the electronic means allowed by law. We have to keep permanent records. And then in number 2 is that for all ordinances and amendments to the charter to be posted on the city's internet website for at least 1 year, unless earlier codified into its code of ordinance.
I propose to approve these changes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. It's unanimous, no change.
No, there is
To
change.
accept changes.
Accept it, Tommy, to accept the changes.
Accept the changes.
Yeah.
I think that covers it. See no reason for change.
No changes from me.
No change here. No changes.
And finally, in Article 3, 350.
I have a question about bonds. As I recall, there was an election and the citizens voted not to fund a new city hall, and yet it got funded. How did that happen?
This is not that type of bonding. This is bonding employees.
Oh, bonding employees, okay, no questions,
An
all
employee.
good.
I see no changes.
Changes? No changes?
No changes.
You're good? No changes?
Still have a question.
I would like,
I'll answer your question.
what is the hour, please?
So this takes us
7:26.
7:30. It's and we've gone through that. Or do y'all want to continue moving? Do y'all want to take a break and come back, or are y'all ready to just come back in next in a couple of weeks?
How do y'all feel?
I knew this was going to be a meaty section.
I'm easy. I'll go along
You're
with that.
easy?
You heard that. You want to continue? Continue on?
I can go as long as anyone wants to.
I would at least request 10 minutes.
We'll continue. We'll let you know when we get tired.
Say that again?
You can continue with the presentation.
After a 5-minute break, please.
You didn't say that earlier.
I would like to go potty, please.
Well, you
Thank
may.
you. Okay.
You have my blessing.
Are you up to?
Stay in official break for 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Commission is back in session.
So we've got, Article 5, which is, city elections. This seems to marry nicely with, city council provision, that's why we took that out of turn. Beginning, with 501 city elections. There's 5 subsections to that. We have a proposed change to number 4, so I don't know if you want to take a look at 1 through 3 first, before we talk about number 4.
I would like to propose that 1, 2, and 3 stay as is.
Second.
You want to leave it at the May election?
Can't change it
I
anyway.
just have a suggestion on number 2, which y'all were talking about with the state ever change, allowing the election where it says shall be held annually on the May election date, to insert verbiage of May from the state approved election date. Something in that order, where that would not ever have to be amended again. That section.
Currently, state law allows 2 uniform election dates.
Right. Doesn't have to be May, it could be whatever.
Right, and
So can you reverb that for me again, please?
why don't we bring some language back for next time?
Okay, thank you.
And number 4, the addition of the or prescribed by law is just to make it consistent with the way elections are run today with the county. County running the election and appointing the officers, et cetera. Election officials.
So just adding or as prescribed by law.
Correct.
I'm okay with that. You okay with that?
Yes.
Make a motion to accept the proposed change for number 4.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second, all in favor of accepting that? Say aye.
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 And then number 5, just saying, subsection 5, just publication in accordance with the Texas election code, which is not problematic.
See no problem. See no problems.
Oh, no, not at all.
I think keep it as it stands.
As is? Leave it as it is, no change.
Filing for office in 5.02. This is a rather lengthy section, and there are some proposed changes to it. And comments from Councilperson Jackson. So I guess first, number 501, 5.02, subsection 1. There was no recommended change in that one.
The comment from Councilperson Jackson.
Yes, those deal with subsections G and H.
Okay.
Looks like what we talked about in the past earlier. The first.
We've got some, we've got a proposed addition, based on other comments that we received. I guess, first one, 18 years of age, is that 5.02
Anybody want to change that?
No, I
18 to
think
21?
they should have the right.
No? Remain the same?
Subsection B, be a qualified voter of the city.
Yes.
Is that defined somewhere?
Qualified voter,
Qualified voter?
it's defined in the election code.
Okay.
Subsection C, reside within the corporate limits of the city for at least 12 months prior to the election day.
No changes.
No change.
12 months within the ward prior to election day.
No
No
changes.
change.
That was already brought up once tonight, so.
I think we've already talked about this. We
Oh,
did the same thing earlier, I believe.
Is this contradicting what's before?
No, we had come to this section earlier when we were talking about subsection.
That's why we said we have to wait till we get to.
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, section 3 said that they will reside in the ward once they are elected.
Office.
Right, and now this is saying that they have resided in the ward prior to election. So, one or the other, right?
redundant.
No, one is saying you will continue your residency.
Oh, we'll continue, okay,
During your term of office.
okay.
But in order to be qualified to be elected to that office, you need to have lived in that ward for at least a year.
Is that what we said earlier?
Yes.
No change. No change?
No change.
No change.
Okay.
No change.
No candidate may file a single election for more than one office.
Guess you don't win the first one.
Who wants two?
Glutton for
Who really
punishment.
wants two?
Multiple
Ward 3
offices.
and mayor.
Change?
No change.
No change?
No
No
changes.
change.
Yeah, no change to F, right?
No changes to F.
Nope.
We're on to G.
So before we get to G, there was a suggested addition down at the bottom. This is a very, further down. There we go.
Okay.
Very, very common provision in other charters.
That's what I read earlier, yes.
Yes, sir.
So it's stating that you cannot be in delinquency of any of your taxes or anything to do with,
Fines, anything.
well, I would
Building
hope, I would hope
permits.
not.
Yeah.
But,
Well,
Ending right now.
yeah, so let's add that. I think we should add that. If you have to go to show face, you gotta show good face, right?
yeah.
Are you accepting that? I'm accepting that.
Agreed. Accepted.
Okay, we have motion and second, we vote.
Oh, do we have to vote on that? I'm sorry.
Yes, the addition, yes.
Right. You,
Motion to approve the addition for,
and you second.
Yes, second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None.
And so, we'll go back up to,
I don't wanna.
G.
G.
Fine.
G and H. If, and I'm sorry, if you go down to the next page. After the there's a couple of proposed changes
I'm all about simplifying it, so I'm for it.
Okay?
Now the,
I'll go.
yes,
Yes.
I mean, and there's a couple of city examples that are provided there,
Could you bring that up so I can see what purpose is?
just to account for council
Okay.
information.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
G and H are fine, the proposed changes, in my opinion. I do ask for the commission to consider an addition to the proposed changes. This would help alleviate any confusion that we've had in a recent election. That the city secretary add a statement that the city secretary shall be responsible for verifying petition of candidates and the application. Without getting into specifics, I think everyone is aware that there was a petition that was not verified. And this is an opportunity to make sure that never happens again. Add a statement, the city secretary shall be responsible for verifying the petition and application of all candidates. Thank you.
That is an untrue statement.
I'm sorry.
You already doing
I didn't-
She's required by state law to verify.
That,
I saw that somewhere.
yeah, me too.
think
I
it's in-
I
It's
always
already
thought
in
that
there,
was.
isn't it?
It's a requirement.
It's
of
just
state
not
law
in
when
this
I took my
section.
oath of office.
Correct?
Okay.
Is there any other changes? Well, G and H, I guess, are y'all fine with the additions as proposed, or do y'all have any changes to that?
Changes?
I would like to move to accept the proposed changes.
For G and H?
Yes, G and H. Anybody want to second that?
I'll second that.
Thank you.
All in favor? Aye?
Tom, you seconded? Yes.
Yes, I
You
did.
did.
And the item passed unanimously.
So 5.03 is ballots. We had no proposed changes on that. You want to go through them?
I see no changes. Do you want to read it? Are you okay?
I'm good.
Good? We're all good.
No changes.
There's a proposed change to number 2.
Yeah.
So you're asking to remove, these returns shall be delivered from the election judges to the city secretary at City Hall as soon as possible after the closing of the polls.
The current process is that the elections are conducted by the county. They're no longer conducted by the city secretary or the state.
So to remove that verbiage, just to make it up to date.
And correct. So number 2, handle it in accordance with state law, period.
I accept the proposed change.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
A second.
Motion is a second. All in favor of the proposal, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. It's approved.
Okay. So that takes us to, that's actually it for Article 5. Article 12, which we prepared for you, is 17 pages long.
Move for adjournment.
I vote to push this to another time. Because I think once we get into it,
So
we're not
just
going to get
before
out of
we
it.
go, the plan for next time is to bring in back language that we've talked about today,
Correct?
as well as to bring back a matrix of what you have approved in the past, just so that we can keep a running log on that. And so that y'all can see that, and that will be brought back, as well as
put on adjournment.
make sure I understand what y'all want.
Not yet.
I know.
It seemed to me that in grouping these by subject area seemed like a good idea.
You're not running all over the pages, I understand.
Do y'all like that practice, or do y'all want to just go straight through? I mean, I can.
After seeing what we're doing, I believe you're doing it the right way.
Thank you. Any other?
Do we have any idea where we are going at? We know we're gonna pick up 12, and then do you know what we're going to next?
So I'll probably still leave 12 to the last of whatever it is that we're going to do.
Okay,
But the next one will probably be the city administration is going to be the next one. Let me pull up let me pull it up here. Hold on 1 second.
And Teresa's is gonna get us this information at what time?
This time you'll get it earlier than last time. We ran into
Friday before the Wednesday?
Yeah, we ran into Veterans Day being a holiday this past week, so which kind of delayed things a little.
Gee, who would have guessed that?
so I know I can't be present on the 30th, but I can still put my remarks in on that deal that we all have, so.
So you'll get your packet, if you wanna mark it up and send it back, you're welcome to do that, and chairman can take those, comments into consideration during the deliberation.
Or if you want to send them to me early, I mean like really early,
Yeah,
then I can include those in the presentation as well.
well, that's kind of why I asked what you thought we were
Yes,
doing
ma'am.
next.
And I am trying to find that for you. So after elections, initiative, referendum, and recall, which is Article 6, that kind of goes right in with this election stuff that we've been talking about.
Mhm.
And then I would recommend then going back to city administration, which is Article 4. And then picking back up with tax administration, Article 8. Would be the three would be the three meatier ones that I would consider looking at next.
Thank you.
So Article 6, 4, and 8.
And then 12 possibly.
I'm sorry?
We're gonna do 12 at the end, you said?
Yeah, 12 will be prepared. I mean, it's already, y'all already seen it, but
Okay.
we can take that up at any time. Those are just,
When we have free time.
yeah. Cool.
Yeah, just throw it on
We
the
haven't
agenda
enjoyed
for
each other's
just
company.
in case.
What did you say, we're here till midnight? Is that what you said?
That's what we're doing.
Vanessa, do they have the ability to vote by proxy? Or Zoom or anything, if we don't have it?
Yes, we can zoom you in.
Yeah, Zoom, so if, I know, I think on the 30th, we have 2 that are gonna be out, I've already
Right,
said.
but we talked about that, we still have a quorum, but they're welcome to zoom in and.
Just wanna make, if another person
hopefully
falls
it'll be
off.
More successful than our last zoom in voting, but we're working to improve it every day.
Yeah, well, that's right, you
It
Zoomed
wasn't
it.
Wi-Fi, I swear.
It was on our end, and like I said,
Yeah.
we're working to improve it, but yes.
Well, I'm not gonna apologize, I'm not gonna Zoom. Where I'm going and what I'm
But,
doing.
but a quorum
Not
has to be
doing it.
present in order for, voting to be
Yes.
taking place, correct?
But isn't 3 a quorum?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're good.
Just make sure if one more person fell off on the 30th, that we wouldn't have a quorum.
I hope they don't.
Is Zoom considered a quorum? Part of the quorum? No.
We need to have a quorum present,
Present, okay.
and then the others can participate by it, but no.
Okay.
We cannot acquire a quorum by Zoom.
Good to know.
Stay healthy.
Anything else?
Adjourn.
Movement for adjourn?
I second the motion to adjourn.
If y'all need anything.
7:54.
Email us, we'll get you whatever. you
Adjourned.
Time.
I'm sorry.
Time is,
7:54.
there you go.
she said. God, my back's killing me.
I'm starving.